Well, howdy there, folks. James, Political Friar, coming to you again. We got the rarest of rare hats on, the White Sox hat. The White Sox hat means we're going to have a historical topic. And this topic is going to be Julius Caesar and the fall of the Roman Republic. And I'm going to try to keep this short because the story is sadly a bit familiar. So, Julius Caesar, you've heard the name, you know, the guy, he was a luminary in Rome. He started his career as the Pontificus Maximus, the head of the Roman religion, the literal office that the word pope derives from was Julius Caesar's first real assignment in Roman life. He was in his 30s at this point, and he had been bouncing around Roman politics through his 20s and not particularly successfully moving forward, but he was put in charge of Roman religious ceremonies and he did a good job. He also did a good job as the praetor who was in charge of bringing celebrations and festivals to the people of Rome. And so his popularity increased and increased and increased until the point where he was the political center of gravity in the capital. And there were two other centers of gravity in the capital at this point. That one was named Pompey Magnus. Maybe you've heard of Pompey the Great. Well, Pompey the Great made his reputation in the right way as a Roman. He went and conquered. He conquered basically everything from the Hellespont, that's where Istanbul is now, Constantinople was then, all the way down to Egypt. Everything along that eastern Mediterranean coast, Pompey. You know, you remember King Herod of the biblical stories? Yeah, Pompey put him in place. So that was the next leg of a triumvirate, as it were, and then third part of the triumvirate, meaning three, triumvirate was a guy named Crassus. Crassus was the billionaire, trillionaire of his time. He owned everything. Famously, he owned the fire department in Rome, and he would, when there was a fire that broke out in Rome, he would have his fire brigade show up to the fire, and then he would ask the owner, "Well, how much will you pay me to put this fire out?" That was just an example of the kind of wealth that Crassus had, but wealthier than Crassus became an actual like idiom. He, if you adjust for inflation, he was a trillionaire. He had more money than anyone in all of history ever. And so what you have is a combination of the most talented politician, Caesar, the most talented military man, Pompey, and the richest man, Crassus, who come together and decide that Caesar Caesar ought to go ahead and become consul. Consul in the Roman system was the head executive. Think president. Think president. It was different, but for the sake of this particular uh, YouTube channel, think president. They made Caesar president. And president in Rome was only for a year, and you couldn't be reelected. But they did it. They made Caesar president, and Caesar, while he was president, oh, in the making of him becoming consul, come president, they lied, cheated, and stole. They committed every kind of election fraud, every kind of crime that you can commit, and they won. They succeeded in stealing that election. I mean, heck, Caesar probably would have won without them stealing it, but they did it anyway. I guess you know when you're determined to steal an election, don't leave simple things like votes to a chance. Oh, did you know Rome was a republic at this point and they voted? Yeah, they voted for their leaders. Yeah, okay. That's not going to last long. So Caesar becomes consul and he puts into place the things that he says he was going to do during the election campaign. He drastically redistributed land from the wealthy to the poor. He took away senators' privileges. He did a bunch of stuff that maybe from an outside 10,000-foot point of view was good for Rome, but he didn't have the legal authority to do it, but he did it anyway. And in that he didn't have the legal authority to do it, he broke the law. He broke the law over and over and over and over. And like it or not, he was a deeply unlawful person. His ambition first, Caesar first, Rome second. And one of the things about a consul is that they were held sacrosanct. Sacrosanct means that they could not be prosecuted for their crimes or held liable in civil actions. Civil actions very similar to the ones that we have in the United States. While they're in office, you have to wait for their year to be up. So while they're in office, people who were accumulating grievances based on Caesar's illegalities couldn't sue him. So his year's coming up. And Caesar is going to get sued. Hell, he's going to be indicted by the criminal apparatus. He's going to be thrown in chains, maybe sent to be a gladiator or something. And so he contrives with Pompey and Crassus to find a way to stay sacrosanct, because there's another office in the Roman Republic that's sacrosanct, and that's governor of a province. Governorships are given to people for 10 years. And during those 10 years, they're sacrosanct. They can't be sued. And so Caesar contrives to become the governor of Cis and Transalpine Gaul, basically northern Germany and France, northern Italy and France. France being not particularly under the control of the Romans at this point, and even northern Italy was tenuously under the control of the Romans. So he gets this job. And it's basically a 10-year get-out-of-jail-free card. All of the crimes that he committed while he was consul, well, they can't come to roost during these 10 years. And during those 10 years, Caesar proceeded to conquer France. Gaul. Gaul is what it was called at the time. He even landed on southern Britain, doing something that made him justifiably famous in the eyes of the Roman people. But 10 years, well, it just goes by in a flash of an eye, right? So when the 10 years are up, the people who Caesar committed crimes against haven't forgotten that. And they're preparing to make sure that he is not reinstated as the governor of Cisalpine Gaul, and that is normal. Governors never spend 2 terms in a row. And so Caesar marches back to Italy knowing that he's on the clock. He's on the clock because the law is coming for him, because he's a criminal. He knows he's a criminal. He's not surprised by it. He knows that he committed those crimes. And he says, you know what? Nah, I don't want to be accountable for crimes. I don't want to be held accountable for the things that I did that put Caesar first and Rome second. And so he launches an armed civil war against the law of the Republic of Rome. And Crassus at this point is already long dead, but Pompey is there in Rome. And Pompey says, wait, you can't do that. That's against the law. And Romans, if they're anything, respect the law. And Caesar doesn't. Caesar says, Caesar first, Rome second. And Pompey says no. And a civil war ensues, largely between Pompey and the vast majority of the Roman establishment and Caesar and the rural populists. I mean, Caesar was a rural populist. He got his support from the lowest levels of society who wanted more land from the elites. A very understandable desire, but they didn't care how they got it. They didn't care whether Caesar gave them their bounty in a lawful way or if Caesar gave them their bounty by stealing it from others. Didn't care about the property rights or the the liberties of those others as long as they got what they want. It was a very sort of proto-communist movement that supported Julius Caesar, and they won. Julius Caesar won. Julius Caesar was a magnificent military mind. Uh, Rivals would be counted as Alexander the Great and maybe nobody else, maybe Genghis Khan. And so he won. And in so doing, he destroyed a Roman Republic that had existed for 400 years. 150 years longer than the American Republic has, might I add, and replaced it with an empire. And that empire, it didn't last. It succumbed to the very same cycles that all empires succumb to: bad leadership, corruption, inability to understand the needs of the periphery. And the Roman Empire fell. Rome was doomed the day that Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon and declared that the die was cast. Let's try to avoid that in this particular republic, don't you think? Anyway, it's just a thought. Let me know how wrong I am in the comments down below. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. The like always helps. And just know, I appreciate you. Thanks.